What's the funniest way a rude person got what was coming to them? My neighbor Lorraine spent 3 years treating my house like a store where nothing had a price tag. It started small, a cup of sugar she never replaced, our ladder for an entire summer. Then it was, can I just hop on your Wi-Fi until mine gets set up? And her Wi-Fi somehow never got set up, not in 3 years. Every single time I said yes, because I did not want to be the difficult one on the street, and every single time she read that yes as permission to come back for something bigger. That is how it works with people like her. You are not being kind. You are filing a permission slip. And I want to be clear about how ordinary all of it looked from the outside. Lorraine waved at everybody. She remembered your kid's name and your surgery and your work schedule. She brought a card over when the retired couple's brother passed. If you had asked anyone on that block to describe her before this fall, every single one of them would have said nice, friendly, maybe a little much. Nobody would have said she was running anything. That is exactly why it worked as long as it did. So this past Saturday, she finally outdid herself, and she did it to my kid. My daughter Mia is 10. Every morning she takes our 2 dogs out to the front yard, and she brings the little bag with her, and she cleans up after them without anybody having to remind her. She has done it since she was 8. That morning she barely got down the porch steps before Lorraine came cutting across the grass and planted herself right in front of her. She said, "Hey sweetie, does your family have Disney Plus? There's a show I missed last night and someone told me it's on there. Can you just give me your login real quick?" My 10-year-old, standing in wet grass holding a bag of dog waste, told her that was not hers to give out. Lorraine did not stop. She said, "Oh, come on, your mom wouldn't even notice. It's just a password." Mia said no again. Then Lorraine's voice dropped into that flat register adults use on kids they think they can push, and she said, "I'm being really nice about this. I'm only going to ask one more time." My daughter said no for the 3rd time, and a grown woman got angry at a child over a streaming service. She threw her hands up and said, "Unbelievable, this whole family is so stingy," and she spun around to make her big exit. Now, the dogs had already done their business in the grass, and Mia had not gotten to it yet, because Lorraine had cornered her before she could take 2 steps. So when Lorraine spun, she put her foot straight down into the middle of it. Both dogs. She let out a screaming string of curse words at 8 in the morning, hopping on one leg in my front yard, in front of my 10-year-old, and she had an audience she did not plan for. The man who walks his dog past our house every morning, the mom across the street loading her kids into the car, the retired couple who sit on their porch with their coffee and see everything. Mia came inside laughing so hard she could not get a full sentence out. That should have been the end of it, a funny story I tell at work. It was actually the beginning. That afternoon, Lorraine knocked on my door with her calm face on, and said she thought there had been a misunderstanding with my daughter. I told her there was no misunderstanding. She asked a 10-year-old for our login and got mad when the 10-year-old said no. She said, "Well, when you say it like that, it sounds bad. I only asked because I figured you wouldn't mind. We're neighbors." I told her being neighbors does not make my things her things. She said it's just a password. It costs you nothing. I said then it costs you nothing to buy your own. She switched lanes and said her shoes were ruined. Expensive shoes. And my dogs really should not be doing that where people walk. I told her my dogs go in my own yard, where my daughter cleans up after them, which she would have done if Lorraine had not blocked her to demand a password. I could see her lining up the ask for the shoes, so I said the 2 things I had been holding all day: buy your own subscription, and I am not paying for new shoes. Then I shut the door, politely, and stood at the sink with my hands shaking. That evening I walked the casserole dish back down to the retired couple. I meant to hand it over and leave. I did not make it up the steps before the wife leaned forward and said, "We heard every word this morning." Her husband nodded in his rocking chair and said, "She borrowed our garden hose in April. We have not seen it since." And something opened up. I sat down on the top step, and for the first time in 3 years we talked about Lorraine honestly. Not the polite version, the real one. A hose, a set of mixing bowls, a stepladder, batteries, trash bags. Always the same script. "I just need it for today. I will bring it right back." Always delivered with a smile like you were her favorite person on earth. They had stopped lending 6 months ago and never told anyone because they thought they were the only ones, and they did not want to look petty. That is when Preston came over from across the street, hands in his pockets, and sat down on the bottom step like he had been waiting years for the invitation. He said, "She told me she would return my lawnmower at the end of June. It is October." Preston is 72. I had watched that man push a manual mower through his own grass all summer, the kind you shove with your arms, and I never once asked why. He had bought it with his own money to replace the powered one Lorraine still had in her garage. He said, "I did not want to cause a fuss." That sentence sat in my chest for a week. I did not want to cause a fuss. That is the whole engine of it right there. Not one of us was afraid of Lorraine. We were afraid of the 2 seconds after you tell somebody no, that little drop in the air where they look at you like you just did something ugly. She had figured out that most people will hand over almost anything to avoid those 2 seconds, and she had been collecting on that for years without ever once raising her voice. We stayed on that porch another half hour, and every minute somebody remembered something else. A phone charger that walked off with the whole cable. A bag of fertilizer she promised to replace and never did. Each one sounded like nothing on its own. That was the trick. Stack them, and it stops being nothing. That night, the mom across the street texted me. Lorraine had borrowed her infant car seat months ago for a friend's baby shower. One afternoon, right back. Never returned it. The mom spent $90 replacing a car seat for her own child, for a woman who does not have kids. I sat at the dining table reading that text, and something clicked. This was not absent-mindedness. It was a route. She rotated houses so nobody felt hit too often. She timed her asks for when your arms were full of groceries or your kid was already buckled in and you just wanted her gone. She framed everything as tiny. Just today. Just real quick. And she kept us all separate, because the whole thing only works if nobody compares notes. So the next morning, I started a group text. No speech, 1 line. If Lorraine asks you for something, you are allowed to say no. Preston wrote back, "Should have done this years ago." The retired couple sent a thumbs up. The mom across the street wrote, "Finally." Lorraine had no idea the block had just started talking. She knocked on Preston's door at 9 the next morning. Big friendly grin, and asked to borrow his mower because hers was acting up. He looked at her and said, "You mean the mower you borrowed from me 5 months ago? That mower." He told me her face went still like someone had hit pause. She had never needed an answer for that before. She started saying she must have gotten them mixed up, and Preston said, "It is green with a yellow handle and my initials scratched into the side. Bring it back by end of day." By 4 o'clock it was sitting on his porch. 2 days later she showed up at the mom's door with a $3 bag of store cookies, still twist-tied, and asked whether her husband knew how to fix a garbage disposal. The mom said no, but there's a handyman in the phone book. Lorraine laughed and said, "It would take him 5 minutes." The mom said, "Then it should be easy for whoever you hire." And Lorraine picked her cookies up off the step and left without saying goodbye. Then it was our turn again. She came to our door and asked for Bertrand specifically. Sweet voice. Said she had a fence section leaning bad and he was so handy. He did not even pause. He said, "I charge $60 an hour." She laughed. That laugh people do to give you a chance to take it back. He did not take it back. He said, "I spent 12 years years in construction. I do not work for free. She stood there waiting for him to fold, and when he did not, she walked off the porch without a word. What got me about the fence was that it was the second person she had asked for the same favor. She came to me on a Wednesday, and I told her Bertrand was busy. She waited 4 days and went straight to him, on the assumption that a compliment and a big smile would get around whatever I had said. That is not a woman who forgot. That is a woman working a list. I watched her from the front window after each one. After Preston, she went home fast with her head down. After the mom, she stood on the sidewalk a full minute scanning houses like a person checking which stores are still open. After Bertrand, she stood in her own yard with her arms crossed, staring at our house, not moving. Then she went quiet for 2 days. No porch light, no loop around the block. Car never moved. Bertrand thought it was over. I knew better. Lorraine did not take things because she was cheap. She took them because she believed she was owed them, and people built that way do not go quiet when the giving stops. They go loud. Friday, I was washing dishes when her car pulled up loaded with party store bags. All afternoon, she hung streamers and taped a banner across her porch that read, Neighborhood Appreciation Cookout, Saturday at noon. Nobody was invited individually. No texts, no knocks. She hung a sign and expected a crowd.